Hello and welcome to another episode of It Came From the Page. And yes, you read that right. We are going to be going over my top 10 horror reads so far of 2023. Now, I was planning on doing this for October. I just ran out of time and ran out of a bit of steam before making that video. So I figured I wrote up the list. I made the list. I might as well actually record this video now just because it's a fun topic. Everyone likes the top 10. And also, I think that there are some books on here that if you're planning your TBRs and you're planning what to read for the rest of the year, you might want to prioritize some of these books as you go on. So keep in mind, these are very much going to be books that are of my particular tastes, which means you are going to see some tie-in books in here. And, some people, that would be sacrilege. But I don't view them as any lesser than other types of materials. So if I found a book really powerful and impactful, and it happens to be a book that ties into something else that exists, well, so be it. That's just how I do things on this channel. So without further ado, let's start it out. I actually had about 12, and I had to kind of wheedle it down a little bit to make my top 10, which was a bit of a surprise because I didn't think I got to too many 2023 books this year, but Pinata by Leopoldo Gout is my number 10 book. This is a book that I read in, I believe it might have been May for a book club, and it was a really impactful and interesting book with some really well fleshed out characters. There was a very strong political bent to this book, and there was it all comes together very cohesively with some very spooky, scary elements, and was I read it at a very tumultuous time in my life, and I think that this book is something that really kind of helped me get through some of the more wild things that I had to go through for the month I read it. So, one of these things about horror is sometimes it can be an escape. And what's interesting about this is that this is not a light book. There's a lot of very heady topics about this. It is a lot about the history of Mexico and as a whole bunch of cultural things going on that I'm not, I wouldn't say that I would be well equipped to talk about all of the intricacies in the book, but it does make me want to go and read a little bit more about Mexican history and Mexican folklore to have a more nuanced opinion. But as just a person who doesn't know that much about the topic, going in, I still found it very impactful. The character writing was great. And it was a really emotional read. So definitely would recommend this book. Next up, like I said that there was going to be a few tie-ins, and this is where you're going to get a few. So this is one that I actually read in, I believe it was September, and it was a book I got for an arc. I've reached a point in my booktube life where I'm actually getting arcs for books that I'm interested in now, and it's very, very heartening, and I think I'm good now. No one else needs to follow me. As long as I have enough followers to get books like this, I'm good. And this is Marvel Zombies: The Hunger, which is a full novel written about the Marvel comic storyline Marvel Zombies. Now, this isn't an adaptation of a previously existing comic book. This is an original story told in the Marvel Universe, utilizing the Marvel Zombies idea and building off of it and doing something original. And I just thought this book was super well written. The action is super interesting and fun. The character writing is legitimately hilarious at times. The book completely goes off the rails in some amazing, spectacular ways. The horror elements were extremely powerful and extremely effective, and I just had an absolute great time reading this, and it is better than any other Marvel Zombie things I've ever read. I don't actually particularly like the original Marvel Zombie comics. There are a few laughs and a few interesting elements to them, but this book is so much better than its source material. So for that reason alone, I have to put it on this list and just appreciate the fact that this is a wonderful book that I read this year, and I had a great time with it. So this is definitely, there's not as much hardcore emotional elements to this, but it is still a book that is going to bring you on a pretty big thrill ride, and you're going to have a good time with it. So if you're more into pulpy horror and you're at all into Marvel itself, highly, highly recommend this one. Next up, a Warhammer book made it. I know, I'm a bit surprised myself because, Warhammer books are a mixture of like cosmic horror and military sci-fi, and some of them are just hardcore sci-fi. There's a lot of there are crime stories told in the Warhammer universe, so there's a lot of different avenues that a story told in this particular universe can take. And this one, which is Angron, The Red Angel, is a book that I just thought was really, really creepy. Like, it gets wild and unhinged. As we go on through this list, you're going to find out that I am a person who really does enjoy when a book ends completely wild and unhinged, but has some sort of grounding element to it. And this one is one of those books. Like, this is a book about there's this huge demon returning to the galaxy, and he had all of these soldiers who used to follow him into battle are all, for the first time in 10,000 years, for the first time in 500 years, all getting together again to just do a bloody rampage throughout the stars with this demon at their head. And it is so wild and unpredictable. Huge demon battles happen in this. And there's also, you get the perspective of a character who's kind of possessed by a demon. And it is heart-wrenching and really disturbing. That character's internal monologue is super interesting because it is from a perspective of somebody who's kind of losing themselves as the years go by, and they can't really remember who they are, and all they have are these angry emotions, and they don't know how to deal with it. And it was super disturbing and super scary to me in particular. I'm gonna guess it's probably because I had a stroke, so brain injuries of all sorts hit me hard in horror because I've experienced them in real life. So that might be a little bit of a reason why I put this up a little bit higher than some might. But I just think this was an absolute blast of a book and was really, really fun. So that's why it is here. Next up, episode 13 by Greg DeLuey. This is an excellent, excellent audiobook. I listened to this on audio. I know there is a print copy. I know that the print copy kind of has some interesting elements to it as well, but it seems to be the consensus is if you're going to listen to this, listen to it on audio. And this was a fantastic audiobook with so many great characters in it. And the fact that the audio gets different actors and actresses to go about portraying these different perspectives that you're in really kind of help you get into the story. But even on top of the elements of building a story, it is for building an audiobook, it's still a great story just on its own. There's some really impactful, creepy elements for this. This is basically a book about a ghost hunting team who are trying to come up with their next great ghost adventure because they are doing a television series and they need to be renewed for another season. So they want to do something impactful and scary and something that they can get real footage for and that will get them to be on top and people to remain interested in their show. And it really kind of goes through all the different characters' perspectives and why they have certain beliefs that they do and what is driving them forward to do these investigations, what is going on with their internal lives. And it's just a really interesting cast of characters and a really interesting story. And the way the story ends, I found super impactful. There was a idea about the afterlife presented here that I found super interesting and it just disturbed me in some really great ways. So definitely a huge recommend. I know we are a bit lower on that list than for some people, but don't see that as a mark of quality. All of the books on my top 10 are fantastic books. Next up, I know this is going to be the last one of the last tie-in books that are going to be here, but it has to be here because it was an absolute amazing read. And this is Alien: Enemy of My Enemy by Mary San Giovanni. And I love this book. It's another one where it starts out smaller because it's the book starts out where there's these people who are doing a research base on an asteroid, and the asteroid is slowly coming apart due to gravity, and they only have so long to finish up what they're doing at this research base until the entire base gets basically sucked in and destroyed. So there is a timeline for them to get off and get all of their research and all their materials to ensure that they're not left alone on a crumbling asteroid to die, basically. And that part is super interesting, but it goes even farther than that. You think once they escape the asteroid, the story's done, but no, there's a whole other element that goes on. So it was really interesting and compelling. There are some creepy scenes in this. This book also does not play around. There are some brutal deaths in this for characters that normally in books like this would not get horrible deaths. So it was really impressive from that idea that you don't know what's going to happen. You are completely shocked and amazed, and it's just so much fun reading and experiencing this book that I gotta give it a huge recommendation. So I absolutely love this book. I think there's some great characters, a great plot, and some crazy scenes. So gotta put that one on there. Next up is Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. This is an excellent sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw, and it brings Jade back, and it's just so good. There's some amazing action sequences in this. There's some amazing horror sequences in this. The way that Graham writes Jade in this, I really like, because she has been away for many years. She has not had access to the horror movies that she normally is watching again and again. So some of her references are a little outdated. And they also, I think Stephen Graham Jones also does a lot of work to ensure that you know that the references in the first book are more character-based. They're not just Stephen Graham Jones's opinion, because there's another character, Letha, who, when she returns, she has a different take on certain horror movies. And they have a back-and-forth debate where they both kind of talk about how they feel about certain things. So it makes the book feel a little bit more like not just a series of references, like they're coming from a character's perspective rather than just being like just mindless references. So it made the character reactions a little bit more real. And also there are some fantastically heartbreaking scenes in this. There's some great chapters. One of the first chapters in this book that is reintroducing the sheriff, who's no longer a sheriff after he's gone through all the surgeries to recover from the aftermath of the last book, I found amazing and super impactful and super interesting. As somebody who's also gone through some shit in the last 3 years, stories like that really are kind of impactful and important. So just as a whole, I absolutely love this book. I cannot wait to continue on with this series. And yeah, I think this is one of those books that I'm definitely going to be reading again and again as the years go by. Number 4, and what I thought was going to be number 1 for the longest time, and this is just going to show how good the year has been. This is Grady Hendrix's How to Sell a Haunted House. This is another book that I think for me personally, there's a lot of things that happen in this book that I found like really impactful. I almost lived this book in May when I had to go back home for a while after a death in the family and feel what it was like going back to a place that you grew up in and all of the complicated emotions and all the family drama that goes along with it. I think all of that is captured super, super well in this book. I love Grady Hendrix. This is a book that I do think that you have to stick with it for a little bit longer than you normally would in order to get a full appreciation for it. Because, like, the brother character ends up being somebody who is actually a really fleshed out and interesting character. But when he's first introduced, he almost seems unbelievable in how much of a complete asshole he is. So the added benefit of eventually getting to find out his particular story is something that is important to go for it and to suffer through if you're having some trouble, because I think it all makes everything go and tie up super well. If you don't know what this book is about, this book is about a family dealing with a cat who's about to do something she's not supposed to. This book is about a family, a brother and a sister, who have to deal with the death of both of their parents. They are kind of estranged, and turns out the house is haunted. So it's really like them trying to figure out what to do about this ghost situation. And the villain introduced in this is Pumpkin! Pumpkin here! Pumpkin here! Everybody laugh! Everybody cheer! Pumpkin! Pumpkin is one of the great horror villains of the last the last 10 years at least. I love Pumpkin. He's this haunted doll, and it's so funny because a lot of the tropes. This is something Grady Hendrix does super well, because I'm not a person who really cares about evil killer dolls or ghosts, and that's not like a particular trope that I seek out and enjoy. But similar to what Grady Hendrix did with My Best Friend's Exorcism, he's able to take tropes that I normally don't enjoy in horror fiction and make an awesome story out of it. So Grady Hendrix kicking it out of the park, as always. I mean, it's Grady Hendrix. What do you expect? Here's something I didn't expect. My number 3 choice. This is Autumn Crow Fresh Hell by Cameron Chaney. This book is amazing. This book is absolutely outstanding. I loved every second of this book, and I was amazed because I liked Autumn Crow. I thought Autumn Crow was a very good short story collection. It's never been one that I've revisited yet, but I think that Autumn Crow, the original short story collection, is a book that I think is a fantastic book. And I think it's a book that has grown on me a little bit over the years. But when I initially read it, I liked the book. I thought it was a great book. It just wasn't something that was a favorite of mine. As the years have gone on, it's kind of like grown on me a little bit. And I've kind of like thought more and more about some of the short stories here. And which kind of proves that it's a much better book than even I gave it credit for at first, because a lot of short story collections kind of fade with time because there are so many stories in a smaller package, whereas Autumn Crow is something that almost every story has stuck with me. So I went into this with expectations that I figured I would like it. I like Cameron Chaney's writing style. I had no idea that I would love it, though. So this is a YA tale, and it is wow. It is wow. Like, it is, there's spooky, scary, horror imagery in this. Right off the bat, no, Kit! Right off the bat, there is a dream sequence that is incredibly terrifying, incredibly graphic, and it was, all of a sudden I was instantly in. I was like, oh, this is like, there's like super high stakes in this. For some reason, when somebody says young adult novel or something that is kind of like based off of YA, for whatever reasons, I think I have this wrong opinion that the stakes will match the fact that it's supposed to be for young adults. Whereas that's clearly not true, especially not in this book, because things start out, whoa, and you're like instantly like trying to figure out what the heck is happening in this book. That opening scene, like, I don't know any other book this year that has like from the first chapter instantly started out where I'm like, holy shit, I am in. And then the book has some really wild, creepy atmosphere, some great horror scenes, but then it also has an amazing heart to it. And this is one of those books that by the end I was bad tears. Like, I cried from this book, and it was a really powerful read. And I was shocked. I was like, damn, Cameron Chaney, you got me. Because it's like, I was expecting it to be kind of just like oh yeah, it's fine. It's going to be like a fun read. I figured I would like it, but I had no idea I would absolutely love it. It would be one of the best things I read all year. I'm like, damn, I'm going to read this book again and again. Like, this might even become like a Halloween staple. Although, like, the book is technically set near the start of September. So maybe it'll be my lead up to Halloween staple. But regardless, this was outstanding and delightful. And at times, there are scenes in this book where you are like, holy shit, that was a dream, right? That can't be a real thing that just happened. And then all of a sudden you're like, whoa! It's like a few pages later, you're like, wait, that did just happen? Are you for real now? You're like, damn, Cameron Chase got it. Whoa, this is awesome. Like, I was just like so blown away by this book. It's a book that, like, if I were to do this list probably in another month, it might even move up closer and closer to the top, because it's just a book that has stuck with me. It has some amazing scenes, some great heart to it. The easiest comparison I would say, this kind of feels like the newer Netflix Fear Street movies, but I think that this is much better than those movies, because those Fear Street movies, I think, have great violence and some great scary atmosphere, but I think the character writing kind of is a bit disappointing in those books, whereas Fresh Hell takes all of the great aspects of those modern Fear Street movies and makes it into a cohesively great book with great writing of the characters and great horror scenes. And yeah, I'm in for whatever Autumn Crow anything we get next, because I loved it. This was amazing. I love it. Number 2, as you can tell, we are just talking about books that I absolutely love, and this is a book that has, like, affected the way I decor my house and what I buy in life. And this is Mayfly, which is a debut novel by C.J. Lead. It's like, what? This is your debut? I'm a person who has not been ever into eyeball decor. Like, I don't mind eyeballs for, like, Halloween decor, but, like, it's never been one of my favorite Halloween-y items. But now I'm buying eyeballs all over the place. Every time I go out and I see a freaking something from the movie Frozen, I'm like, oh my god, it's a Mayfly book. Because Mayfly is this book about this woman who is working as a Disney princess. They don't technically say Disney princess, but it's very clear she's playing Elsa from Disney's Frozen. Don't tell the mouse. And she is just kind of her slow decline into murderousness, and the way her own psyche kind of declines throughout the book, and how she just ends up going full serial killer by the end. She's pretty messed up by the start of the book, but by the end of the book she's real messed up. And it's like it's this character who has all of these really fun ideas about how she constructs her life and what she thinks of. She's like a huge fan of Halloween, so she has like all these like great, like legitimately just great, flawless opinions on Halloween and the decor you should use and the soundtracks you should use, and all of that stuff. And there's like a really interesting like relationship at the core of it. It's a book that I found very, very disturbing by the end, and I also had a great time with it. It's like a very conflicting book in that way, in that it's subsequently incredibly disturbing, but also incredibly fun, and it manages to nail both of those aspects, and they don't detract from each other, which I think is one of the reasons why I think Mayfly is such a powerful, great novel. So I loved Mayfly. Cannot wait, and I cannot wait to see what C.J. Lead does next, because yeah, this was an awesome book. I loved it. And my number 1, this is the book that made me cry the most this year. This is Camp Damascus, a book by Chuck Tingle. Now, I have never read a Chuck Tingle book before this. I know that he writes a lot of smut, sometimes it's like some silly sounding names, and he seems to be a writer that on the internet has like a lot of internet clout. Like the naming conventions for his books, it's kind of become like a running joke on the internet for people who want to read silly, unhinged smut books. And because of that, I feel like a lot of times on YouTube, especially for Camp Damascus, there's this idea that people always want to make jokes about the other books that he has written, where it's like, look, you can write fun, unhinged smut and also fantastic other works of fiction that you are intending for a much more serious aspect of the reader base. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason why people need to bring up his prior smut material as like a downside when you're talking about this book. You don't need to make jokes about the book or his other titles of his books for your thumbnails. You don't need to do that. You just need to review and talk about the book that exists as it is. It's just it's a little bit of booktube snobbery. That's all I'm saying. And I gotta move a cat. She's doing things she's not supposed to. What are you doing? Anyways, rants aside about booktube snobbery, I in general just found this like a super impactful book. The character writing is so well done. This is about a series of gay people who have gone to this conversion camp in their past, and you find out that there's something really horrifying going on at this conversion camp, and that's how they have their so-called 100% success rate in their gay conversion therapy. And we live in a time where gay people and trans people are being targeted by all kinds of stupid right-wingers and a lot of misinformation and a lot of hatred going around. So like a book like this and the way that it's written and the impactful nature of it, I think is really, really important. And because there's a lot of horrible legislation going on in this country, my country and other countries, and there's a lot of people being targeted now. So like these kind of books are important. There are important elements to be reading right now. They're also just a really entertaining read. Once you figure out what is going on at this conversion camp, it's like, whoa. It's like something that is super creative and super interesting. There's a lot of cosmic-y horror elements, especially at the end of this book, that I thought were really, really impactful and really powerful, and I absolutely adored and loved it. I don't want to say too much of this because I think this is one of those books where if you experience it without knowing too much about this book, it will just continually surprise you, and you really get the full experience by not knowing everything going in. Now, along these lines, I do want to just address a book that when I was looking online, I saw people talking about it like it was a 2021 release, but it's not. But it's like a very similar, like, when I said like my preamble at the start of this also definitely applies to this book, is the Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. Now, I've seen people putting this on the internet, on the like literal published websites as a 2023 release. This book was released in 2021. I don't know if it was re-released in 2023 or was brought to North America in 2023. I just want to clarify, because I read that book and I absolutely loved it, and everything I said about the start of Camp Damascus is also very, very, very true about Tell Me I'm Worthless by Alison Rumfitt. It's just not in my mind a 2023 release because it came out in 2021. So I that's the only reason why it's not here. I read that book this year and I absolutely loved it and I was blown away by it. So that book is also very good and another important book that you could really kind of attach with Camp Damascus. Now, Camp Damascus is a much more hopeful story than Tell Me I'm Worthless, and also you don't feel as completely miserable when you finish Camp Damascus. It actually kind of has like a very heartening, uplifting ending to the movie, to the book. So, I would read Tell Me I'm Worthless and then maybe Camp Damascus is to pick you up after you get destroyed by that book. But regardless, I just found this book so incredibly impactful, really tugged at my heartstrings, so many tears for this book, and I just loved every single second of it. So highest recommend for Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. What have you read this year? What books am I missing? Please let me know so by the end of the year I can focus on getting to those. Hope you guys are having a good November. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.